Om Shri Ganeshaya Namo Namah. Greetings to everyone world over, all our brothers and sisters across the globe, wherever you are. We extend a very warm welcome to each one of you. It's a green morning, green afternoon, and green evening. What a wonderful day, because it's a very auspicious day, 8th of April 2023, Saturday. We will share with you how the day is so important. We have got the legend of the management, Padma Bhushan, Professor Jagdish and Sheth, who is the chairman of the JAGSoM and is the professor of business, Emory University, USA. And at the same time, he's patron, International Chamber for Service Industry. We seek his blessings, we seek his guidance, we draw the new lanes and roadmaps and pick up so much, because the wisdom, the intellectual capital, and the knowledge reservoir which he carries, there's so much to learn by all of us, all the times, whatever best we can pick up from him. So hearty welcome to each one of you on Sunday in this special program, which is coming from the Patron ICSI. And today we will be talking about the dream project of Honorable Prime Minister of India. He always says that in Amrit Kal, how India would look like and prepare itself for 2047. There are different verticals. We deal in the services sector, and we have taken one of the sector that's called tourism sector. Now, tourism has got a great contribution. Our patron, Professor Jagdish, sir, he will talk about that. He will share his vision with all of us, and he'll give us the roadmap how India can achieve all that which the Honorable Prime Minister desires. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a very, very auspicious and a special day. Today, there is a celebration of Buddha's birthday. It's a flower festival day in entire Japan. Right from Sapporo, Hokkaido, Kobe, Kyoto, Fukuoka, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Yokohama, Tokyo, and this is Hana Matsuri. And that is today celebrating Buddha's birthday. Flower Festival Day, 8th of April. We extend a very hearty welcome to each one of you on this auspicious day, wonderful day. International Chamber for Service Industry, G20 logo also conveys Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. Now, tomorrow morning, we are bringing a special program for you. 2 days before, in India, as per the Hindu calendar, our Indian calendar, we celebrated, related to Janamotsav, that is of Hanumanji. Tomorrow morning, Vidya Se Adhyatam Vidya Ki Aur, from the Woodbury University, Burbank, California, there will be a special program, Shri Hanumanji, Supreme Devotee, par excellence, and how it will be taken in education ecosystem, Vidya Se Adhyatam Vidya Ki Aur, by Professor Satindra Dhiman from the Woodbury University, Burbank. Tomorrow evening, you'll have a special program at 7 p.m. India's time, Remedy Knee Pain with Age. Vishwa Kalyan Ke Liye Ayurveda, how basically Ayurveda is helping all of us basically for wellness tourism, and how the things are. We wish to see everybody healthy, happy, and heartily taking everything. Tomorrow, 8 p.m., like today, we have got this special program. Tomorrow evening, we will take you to Canada, and that will be NRIs for education, skills, and tourism. Canada this week will be having two of the legends who will be joining us from Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, whatever our mind conceives and believes, you can achieve. First of all, you've got to have a confidence, and you've got to prepare yourself whatever you want to get. We are proud, privileged that today we are completing 1,890 webinars, having started on 25th March 2020. This is the complete series which is dedicated to education, skills, educators, our coach, mentors, counselors, trainers, technocrats, everybody whosoever is there. And then, of course, there's a special space and place for tourism industry. So today, we get the vision from Professor Jagdish and Sheth. the Patron ICSI, all the way from United States, Padma Bhushan, Professor Jagdish Sheth, join me in extending a very hearty and a very warm welcome. We get Professor Sheth, sir, all the way from United States. Pranam, sir, hearty welcome to you. Pleasure to have you with us. And with these words, we extend you a very warm welcome. Thank you very much for sparing your most valuable time and to share your vision, the dream project of Honorable Prime Minister, how India would be in 2047. We are also working towards 5 trillion economy. 29th of July 2020, he gave the new education policy also. In the education policy, there is a skill, competency, capabilities, and everything. Now, tourism is one segment. Due to the COVID, we suffered maximum. We were the first to be closing, and we will be the last to open up. But at the same time, sir, tourism, it contributes so much to some countries in the world. And at the same time, to India also, it's very important. We wish to have your vision, your views, how you look at the whole, the platter and the plethora and the confluence of the various stakeholders who can come for tourism, hospitality, aviation, all moving together with domestic and international tourism. With these words, Professor Jagdish and Sheth.
Thank you, Dr. Gulshan Sharma and Vivek Natarajan, if he's able to join. But thank you for inviting me. I think tourism is actually a universally important industry in all countries, advanced countries, emerging economies, and especially island countries. So if you go to Caribbean islands, for example, or if you go to Pacific islands, for example, or Latin American islands, smaller the country, more located in a natural beauty, the greater the importance of tourism. In fact, there are many, many countries. Maldives would be one example. There are quite a few where tourism is almost 80–90% of the business. Hawaii is a very good state in America, which is tourism. America has several great places which basically thrives and survives on tourism. India is blessed. We have to look at all of the things India can offer in the tourism industry, both domestically and globally, and we can think about the ways it can be done. Government's mission to have a $1 trillion economy on tourism, having a mission of 100 million foreign or international visitors, and I would add even more like 100 million employment number can be achieved. And the reason is that journey has just begun, and our history and the legacy in tourism can be leveraged in a positive way. So let me start showing you some of the slides and talk about how India can become a major tourist destination globally. So here is my first slide. I'm trying to get it. Should be able to do it. Can you see the slide?
Yes, sir. It is there, sir.
Good. So this is the title I've given. It is toward a journey toward the year 2047. And these are the steps that one can take to increase the tourism business. I have numbers that are slightly older. Dr. Gulshan Sharma and his institute actually has more newer numbers, but it's the same story. In 2017, travel and tourism industry contributed $220 billion toward India's GDP, almost 9.4%, close to 10%. And I think it is an underrepresentation because tourism industry in India, like several services industries, is cash economy. So you obviously are not able to count everything, but as we put more and more technology infrastructure, as we put more and more the GST architecture, we are very likely to show that tourism actually is growing a much larger piece of the Indian economy than what we have thought about. Tourism is expected to grow at least 7% annually. And again, this number is likely to slightly exceed, is my view. By 2028, travel and tourism will contribute $470 billion for India's economy, which is a very large segment of the total economy. It also provides jobs to 41 million people, or 8% of the total employment. It is expected to rise to 52 million jobs by 2028. And again, given the size and everything we have in India, I think most of these numbers will be proven to be conservative. For example, I was surprised when I read that India is the third largest air travel market in the world, and the fastest growing. US, China, and India. The legacy of Indian airline industry is fascinating to read. And now with the new privatization initiatives, deregulation or open skies, one of the backbones in infrastructure in tourism is the travel by air, not just by rail or by road. And I think that is already put together, and that itself will generate more tourism because you have an enabling infrastructure that basically people are less inhibited or more encouraged to go and see things. But this is a very fascinating story, which is why I wanted to do the presentation. Travel and tourism is the third largest foreign exchange earner also for India. It earned $28 billion in 2017, and 25 million international tourist visitors came to India. Of course, these numbers were decimated during the COVID time period when we had a lockdown, shelter in place, procedures in place, everything, the whole world came to a standstill, but it is coming out back again. International tourism is growing at 15% per year. It is likely to grow even faster because India is the host of the G20 summit in 2023. With this G summit going on, there's a lot of awareness being increased. A lot of visitors are coming to attend different groups or activities of G20. And in the process, they're discovering India. In the incredible India theme that we have, when they come and visit, I think the key ingredient for the success of India in tourism is our friendly nation. We like to welcome people. We are service-oriented that way. People are polite, people are nice, they want to help. And I think that attitude and that DNA of the Indian culture as a great host, I think is going to go a long way toward achieving the goal of the Indian government. The top tourist countries in the world, and I did significant research on this one, are Italy. Think about that. We don't think about these countries. Spain, Australia, France, and Greece. And the reasons why these countries have the largest number of tourists is because they have something unique and different. Most of them have architecture. Most of them have natural beaches, landscape, adventure tourism, just goes on. And I began to analyze and look at the list of why these countries attract so large a tourism proportionately relative to their size, that I began to find that there are parallels in India that we can leverage at the same time. So India's tourism industry has all the ingredients, but does not seem to have a recipe. That's why we need like a mission-driven plan where all the agencies, all the private sector, public sector work together toward making it as it happens in Singapore, for example. Singapore Tourism Board is one of the best in the world. And so are actually Kenya and South Africa. When you visit them, they're quite good. Of course, we have great tourism boards in Rajasthan, in Kerala, quite a few states. But I think India has a potential to make it across all of its states, and especially in the Northeast region. What India has is rich history. It's unparalleled. There are very few countries who can have the history and the legacy of 5,000 years, living, breathing cities, and one can talk about that. Incredible architecture. While our architecture may be anchored to temples or religious beliefs, but it's just extraordinary. When you go and visit them, you just can't imagine the humans thousands of years ago could have created such great statues, such great worship places, etc. Beautiful beaches. India is blessed with a coastal line that goes thousands of miles. Cultural diversity. India is not one unified nation, but it's a huge diversity, which again, from a tourism viewpoint, is a very good ingredient because I can visit only 100 miles away and I get a different feel about the culture. It is very similar to the experience in Europe, where suddenly you are in Germany, but you are in France, you are in Italy, you are in Scandinavia, and you get a different cuisines, different fields, etc. So our diversity is a great asset. Natural beauty. India is blessed with nature. We can see that pretty much not only just forestry and the beaches, but all over the land. More importantly, and this is the one I feel very strongly, that we are very rich with festivals. Each state has its own festivals. There are federal festivals. If you imagine, we may easily have 100 festivals a year, easily. This week is auspicious, of course, the last week, because all faiths are converging in the same week or weekend. You had the Passover by the Judaism people. You have the, of course, Ramadan. Then you have the Christian Easter, which will be tomorrow, Sunday. Then we have our religions. You just saw the Buddha's birthday being celebrated in Japan. Jainism, which I belong, we also had the 9 days of, sort of fasting and praying and all that stuff. So it goes on. So there's very interesting religious celebrations are very key as a part of which festivals and religious celebrations. It also has, and I was corrected now, 40 UNESCO heritage sites. There are very few countries which have so many sites just under one nation. Almost like European Union, if you put together, maybe, you might have, but these heritage sites are very key part of the tourism, and we need to promote each one of them individually and separately. Tourism industry, however, is unorganized. One of the key issues about tourism industry is that except for the travel side, which is organized because of the airlines and train stations, train system, but in general, tourism is unorganized and highly fragmented. It also suffers from uneven experiences. One time I go for tourism, I may be delighted. Next time I go, I have a disappointment. And lack of professionalism. In other words, people who are working in the tourist industry do not have a certification as we have in the hospitality industry, for example, or in the airline industry, but in tourism industry itself is not there. India's travel and tourism industry has the size, I'll give you some numbers, but not the scale because of fragmentation. It's very much like a mom and pop industry even today, despite this huge opportunity and a huge scale that one has, but there's no size has, but no scale, as I call it. So economies of scale, efficiency, productivity is not that great as one could achieve. So to achieve the dream of $1 trillion tourism economy, 100 million foreign or international visitors, and I would add 100 million employees, high wages. Very interestingly, India has the volume, but does not have the value. Per tourist, how much they spend is relatively low compared to other countries. So how can we increase India's tourism, remain strong in volume, make economies of scale efficiency, which reduces the cost, and at the same time, in fact, that the tourists stay longer and pay more per day calculation. It needs to reduce, therefore, end-to-end friction in travel. End-to-end friction is very common in travel all over the world, right? But how do we reduce, if there is any, especially for international tourists? Because they are new, they don't understand the languages, for example, don't understand the customs in many ways. And given that, how do we make it end-to-end friction in tourism and travel as minimal as possible or eliminate altogether? So how can India become a global tourist or tourism destination? The first point is invest in tourism-centric infrastructure. While we are building infrastructure for manufacturing, while we're building infrastructure for other industries, agriculture for some extent, for example, I think tourism is such a huge component of the economy that we need a separate infrastructure dedicated to tourism. In tourism, the issue is, like in many industries, last mile issue. It is not the airports per se or railway train stations, but how do you go from there to the location of a temple, for example, to the location of a statue, for example, or a UNESCO heritage site, for example. I think that's very important to understand. Last mile is a key one in many of these cases. It is a problem in telecommunications, it is a problem in transport in general, and it's a problem in tourism. Second recommendation is digitize, digitize, digitize. The world of digital economy is here. India has done an excellent job of embracing the digital technology, especially the cellular telephone technology or mobile phones. We lead the world in many ways. I think we are the second largest consumer of mobile phones and growing faster than China, which is a more mature penetration already in mobile phones. We have the Aadhaar infrastructure on the one hand, and then we, of course, have the payment system in place, leapfrogging the existing credit card technologies or the PC revolution that advanced countries went through 40, 50 years ago. So that's very key, that we must digitize everything. End to end should be digital. So there is no inefficiency, there is no mistakes, there are no errors in communication as we hand off the. If you take the journey of a tourist and plot it out, you see so many friction points and miscommunication, mishandling, etc., that can be minimized by use of technology, as we do with many of the, like income tax filing, we are doing it now the same way. There are many, many issues that we are able to solve now through digital technology. And the technology is moving so fast that one can actually constantly improve that and gain more productivity, more reliability, more assurance, and more tracking. Very important to make sure that we have the databases to track properly what happens, because you just don't know when there's a large Kunda Meda, for example. There may be crises, some emergencies. Technology can be a great enabler. So I'm a very strong advocate about saying that IT infrastructure, as we call it in general, should be the backbone of tourism industry. Next area, and I'm very passionate about this one, is require skill certification for all jobs. I'm actually writing a book about how vocational education training actually changed or transformed the nations. And we have research on 17 countries, starting with Germany, who is really the gold standard about certification during the Industrial Revolution. The British had their own certification processes. In fact, even today, many of those British certificate institutes are still very popular, like in accounting, for example. We have certification in accounting, which is pretty good, but I think we need across every job in tourism. The person who is your guide is, of course, the minimum, but person who touches the tourist any place, whether it's on the train, whether it's in the plane, etc., I think we need skill-based certification. The other advantage of having a skill-based certification is that it immediately jumps the value of the person. Economic value calculated per day, per month calculation would be much better. Next point number 4, is promote tourism domestically. I did not talk about the numbers, but I was really astounded to find that at the peak of 2019, just before the pandemic started in 2020, we had 2.2 billion domestic tourists. That scale is unimaginable. Only other country that I can think that might have tourists like that would be China. Domestic tourism is the backbone. And domestic tourism is mostly unorganized. somewhat unprofessional. I will use some strong words. But domestic tourism is what the government and industry needs to focus. There's a huge potential. And it's going beyond just festivals, beyond religious events. Now Indians are very curious about knowing the country. And most of them really don't know the rest of India other than the state in which they grow up. With more education coming in, young children would like to travel. With more professional jobs, the family is more educated. They would like to see the children grow up by traveling rather than staying in the same neighborhood. Many of them travel abroad quite a lot. I mean, India's export of tourism is pretty heavy because we have the interest about knowing the world, which everybody has. But I think it's very similar to Italians wanting to learn Germans, Germans wanting to learn French, French wanting to learn Russia, whatever it turns out to be. And they're all so different. And we are organized as states based upon our linguistic, based upon our heritage that we have inherited as separate countries almost. So if I'm in Tamil Nadu, I don't know much about Uttar Pradesh. If I'm a UP person, I don't know much about Kerala. Unless you visit those places, you cannot appreciate how rich the nation is. Now, NRIs, when they come back to India, they know about it. They have targeted certain states because they have interest. We are just learning more about how strategic and important Northeast is, for example. Very much capable of providing enormous tourism-based experiences. I think that's very important, that we need to promote tourism domestically. It's nice to promote abroad, and we have to do it, as I will show you, but I think it's very important to promote tourism domestically. I also believe that tourism can be much more branded package tourism. It's like SOTC did it from India to Indian travelers into Europe, for example, carrying their own cooks. Everything is done so tourists don't have to worry about what meals they will eat, what time they will eat. Everything is organized to get the experience. I think if Indian travel agencies can do such great things abroad, they can do even better in India by focusing on the Indian tourist in India. So develop branded package tours for the domestic travelers. Focus on festivals. This is very important. Our festivals are growing, and I must tell you, this is very nice to see when you go to Ahmedabad in January. You see, of course, kite flying. I used to do it when I was young in Chennai, for example. Kite flying would be 1 week of nothing but sitting in the hot sun outside, preparing the thread, with glass and all that stuff, flying, and they're nothing but fly kites. It's a very unique experience. We all remember that. It's like playing cricket. We always remember that. But today it is made into a huge international festival in Ahmedabad. It's that kind of a thing. It's very similar to a street food made into a global brand. Tourism has such great possibilities in festivals. And those festivals don't have to be anchored to religion, don't have to be anchored to even culture, although they are there. But we can invent, we can discover, we can package new festivals, like Kite Festival. It's a secular, it has no meaning or link to any kind of a religious belief system. I think festivals, and we can invent more and more festivals by creating new products and brands for tourism. Next area is very important. While we may travel, think about international tourists, but the big piece available immediately where there's the affinity, interest, latent desire, is a question of how do you make it into manifest, is the Indian diaspora. It is large and it's growing. It is also concentrated in a few countries, like United Kingdom, for example, the Gulf countries, Canada, America, and some in the Asian culture. I think those are very immediate targets, and we can understand what they want as a family vacation, what they want, what they would like to see, and specialized advertising, promotion, brochures, packaging toward them is very key. Very much like the extension of the domestic tourist, it's an extension of the same with cultural nuances because they have lived and studied abroad. They have slightly different angles. I also find the next point, number 8, I'm going to make is that target certain destination tours, and there are many, many more, but here are the 2 that are very key. First one is weddings. Now, there are many places in Rajasthan. I have attended a couple of weddings in one of those palaces. Weddings are not as a destination in India as they are in Thailand, for example, or they're in Mexico, for example. Many countries have found that people would like to get weddings and unique experiences, places. And this is a huge multi-million-dollar industry waiting to be tapped. Again, it's a part of tourism and travel and tourism, pretty much. But second one is very key, and that is what is called the medical tourism, medical care. India is already 3rd largest, and maybe Dr. Gulshan Sharma, if we have a chance, we might do a separate program on medical tourism, because my numbers are showing that medical tourism, while we are number 3 right now in the world, it is likely to become number 1 destination by 2047. It's that big of opportunity. And it's a high valued opportunity because those tourists, when they come, they stay longer, first of all, and the daily expenditure is much higher than they would come just for vacationing type tourism. So there are very specific areas, vertical markets in tourism we need to identify. I think we have more airports now where we can fly, and the domestic traveler in India is not traveling as much by rail as I used to do, or buses for overnight stays someplace, but it's all about flying now, which is why flying is, I mean, airline is growing about 15%. It's going to grow even faster because there's a transition from rail travel by the middle class people or upper income to the airline because it's so affordable now. With low fare carriers coming in, no frills carriers coming in, companies like Indigo, for example, have done a fantastic job of expanding the market, much greater than we had imagined, probably from the long-haul buses, for example, or from the train travel. So everything is going very, very well. So expand domestic air and train travel. Learn from emerging markets. We always think about learning from advanced countries, but there are some great emerging markets who, despite all of the constraints, infrastructure constraints, policy constraints, whatever they are, have done a fantastic job because tourism is such a key industry in their economy. And of course, Thailand comes out as 1, clearly. Mexico comes out as 2nd, South Africa, and of course, Kenya and East Africa. This is incredible. I've done Kenyan safaris. I've done to South Africa myself as a tourist. And it's amazing to see the experience and the hand-holding they do if they know you are a tourist over there. So learning from other emerging markets is very key, not just the island economies, but these countries are pretty large scale. Mexico is not a small country. It is, again, more than 100 million population, very large geography, very diverse. South Africa is a big nation also size-wise. So we can learn from large emerging economies as to how to increase tourism as it happens in Latin America, such as Brazil, for example. And point number 11, ensure safety and security for everyone. Today, security has become number 1 issue in travel. Doesn't matter where you go, whether it's for tourism or not. So how do we make sure that the tourists, when they go travel, whether those are domestic tourists, the Indian diaspora tourists, or international tourists, non-Indian tourists, Safety is number one. And one has to somehow assure that the tourist, when he or she comes, will be safe. Safety is a very key area emerging as number one all over the world now pretty much. And so we need to invest in ensuring safety and security for everyone. And the last one is very key, in my view, and that is competing for global standards. You saw the excitement of winning for the music alone, the Natu Natu tune or song, winning the Oscar. All of a sudden, everybody in the world knows India is very good in movies industries. We are one of the best, but nobody knows about it. So I think winning global awards, as we do in airline industry, we might be doing in the hospitality industry, but I think as a tourism, we have to seek out, because we can learn quite a lot by saying, what does it take to even be in the race to be one of the global award winners primarily? I would say not limit just to Asia awards or just to African awards, but truly global awards where competition is intense and many other countries will be seeking the same awards. It's like the Oscars of the world or Grammys of the world or whatever they are. So here are the 12 points that I would recommend you can think about as making sure that the vision or the mission of $1 trillion tourism in the industry, 100 million international tourists, and I will add 100 million employees with high wages is very achievable. So let me conclude and pick up any questions. Travel and tourism is a key contributor, let me move the slide, to India's GDP and India's employment, which are two very key indicators for economic well-being of the nation. Domestic tourists are the backbone and should be targeted for higher growth. I personally believe the demand for domestic tourism is more latent. People have not thought about it. And today all the young people can aspire toward that one. One can even put in the school curriculum the notion about learning and traveling India. India is the first destination. It can be done, as they do in colleges to some extent, sort of having the experience. But I think it is something that the government or the private industry needs to target. Travel and tourism is the third largest foreign exchange earner for India. I mean, it's like diamonds. Very interestingly, nobody makes diamonds as good as we do. I think there's something that one can do. Therefore, international tourists are strategic to the nation because of the foreign exchange and the balance of payments. Targeting Indian diaspora is key for future because it will be relatively easy to motivate Indian diaspora to come and visit, especially those who have been line. You know, this is like the roots, discovering your roots essentially. I think that's important. The best target markets are the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and the Gulf countries because of higher concentration of Indian diaspora. Let me take the last slide and then we'll pick up the questions if we have the time. It is important to invest in tourism-centric infrastructure and to deploy end-to-end digital technology to reduce the friction inherent in travel and tourism. Focus on festivals and branded package tours for domestic as well as Indian diaspora markets. Certification of all jobs in tourism, whether it's a job of sweeping the floor, mopping the floor, doesn't matter. Like we learn in the hospitality industry, you have to learn how to do everything to ultimately qualify as a manager or a duty officer, etc. Learning from so professionalize to mandatory to professionalize the industry. To me, the industry needs to be professionalized as IT services is professionalized by definition. There are certifications about the software, for example, the way of doing business, whatever turns out to be. This is a very much a unorganized sector. like retailing, and how do we make it organized sector will be the key one, and unbranded consumption, and how do we make it branded consumption. Learning from other emerging markets such as Mexico, South Africa, and Thailand is also key to unlocking India's potential. And it is critical for India to compete for global travel and tourism awards. So Dr. Sharma, I will stop here and we can pick up questions if you have any questions for others in the audience.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Such a wonderful, valuable inputs for all of us. We have given such a beautiful canvas and there's so much to take on. And next to our heart, which you have given is, it's fine to get 100 million international tourists, 1 trillion foreign exchange earning, but at the same time, 100 million jobs. That is something which you have given the key, something very, very important. All the ingredients, sir, which you have given to us, that focusing on infrastructure, digitizing, excuse me, requiring the skill certification. You mentioned about 17 countries you're working on at present with a focus. And you did mention about Germany as one of the countries. Which are the other countries which we are focusing on, sir? Are these the tourist generating countries or tourist receiving countries? Or is it in general, in totality, you're taking the whole economy?
It's a whole economy. What was called vocational technical training, now it's called vocational education training. Okay. Because cooks are certified as chefs, for example. Okay. Psychology certified, so it's across all industries, manufacturing, etc. And the countries, each country has its own unique sort of a regulatory change in education to focus on vocational education. And in many countries, as the transition from manufacturing to services, government is giving budgets, incentives for training in the services economy worldwide, I'm seeing it. But in many other countries, it is from agricultural to the manufacturing society.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. Before we come to the question, there were 2 points which I just wanted your, the valuable inputs and guidance. Tourism cuts across almost all areas, all fields, all sectors, directly or indirectly, or induced way, whatever we say. And you have also made a mention that it is highly unorganized. Totally, we take into consideration. You also emphasized on domestic tourism, which is a very big force as far as India is concerned. Excuse me. If we look at domestic tourism, sir, if tourism is a part of art, craft, culture, cuisine, dances, music, festivals, my lifestyle, my social norms, everything, don't you feel, sir, somewhere like with Philip Kotler, you brought first time the concept of MBA to India in a way that the people understood what exactly the management education and importance of MBA is. Do you feel when tourism in totality, with domestic tourism, with the kind of a population we have, that domestic tourism, because it's a part of geography also, it's a part of history also, it's a part of culture also, shouldn't it be a part of our NCRT school curriculum books which are coming as an academics? Domestic tourism can be given integral part there as well, sir. How do you look at that?
No, I think it's very possible. You need both a cognitive knowledge, the maps, the locations, interesting places. That's very easy. You also but need an experiential knowledge. So for example, in some countries in tourism, they're actually making sure it's a part of school children education to take them to the museums. Very common. Go to the museum because museum has world culture or domestic culture, whatever they are. I think same thing one can say. We can think about the legacies and the heritage, but I think tourism is really more about contemporary experience. Maybe to visit. So contemporary experience says, I never flew in my life, let me fly.
Wonderful.
Contemporary says, I really need to learn how to go from point A to point B.
Okay.
How do I people who talk totally different language in India? I mean, when I went to Tamil Nadu, I'm a Gujarati, I couldn't understand anything. So I want to learn. It's a great learning experience, and there's no other nation other than probably European Union where you see the diversity, where you cross 100 miles and you get a totally different feel about what you eat, cuisine, what drinks are popular. It's very fascinating. So to me, a significant education for our youth or young people is to have a domestic tourism first before they go international tourism or before they go some other place, before they go to college even.
Yes, yes. Higher education, we can take this as a separate subject. But as far as the school education, basic education is concerned, if we bring in all the elements of our culture, our lifestyle, our ethos, our social norms, everything is an integral part with geography, history. Because when you're traveling by air, sir, that time also you require what? You got to understand the geography, where to travel, how much time, what is the distance, how much it's going to cost. So all those factors fits into my academics in school education very well.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you begin to understand human nature ultimately. No
Yes.
matter what profession you go, you have to deal with other human beings and how do you manage, have multiplicity of viewpoints, tolerance, whatever you call, inclusivity, all that comes. You just become much more knowledgeable person through travel. There's
Great.
nothing better than.
Wonderful, wonderful. Second point, sir, maybe I'm a little biased because coming from the uniform background, I wish to share with you there is a sizable population of officers and defense personnel retiring every year from the armed forces, Army, Navy, and Air Force. By virtue of their uniform, they travel to some of the interiors of the country where the own countrymen also doesn't get an opportunity to go to those areas. Now, do you feel that as a reoccupation, as a resettlement, when they're about to retire, there should be something related to travel, tourism, and this particular industry for them, and they can fit into this very well, and they can talk the practical ethos, what all is available as a big heritage of India?
I think we have underestimated how much talent military creates in each country. Because military, whether it's Army, Air Force, Navy, whatever they are, invest in that human capital. We all come into the military as rough diamonds. And then the military, with its own process, culture, makes us into shining stars. And to me, that a mature person like that is beyond just guide to those interiors. They can be managers. They can run private businesses. They can be entrepreneurs in tourism. I mean, I can just go on imagining what's possible because you do have a talented human being who now needs something else to do because you retire at a younger age, you are living better and longer, and there's a second life that they all can do. I'm particularly more passionate if there was some sort of an entrepreneurship program where many of these retired officers who have a tremendous capability suddenly get excited about becoming entrepreneurs. As an entrepreneur, they can create value. They can create more. And that could be in tourism or that could be some other place. So I'm very, very much supportive of your thinking, yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And how do you look at, because 2047 has become very important. A lot of people have posted question over here. Sir, why 2047 is so important for India? What exactly is happening in 2047? People are posting it from different parts into this. Now, how do you envisage? How do you look at, with your long experience, how India would be globally in 2047, sir?
I think India will become from a low income to a middle income economy easily,
Okay.
where the average annual salary of a person, employed person, will be 2 or 3 times bigger than what it is now, clearly.
Okay.
By moving to occupations which are more certified and therefore you get better paid. Technology will drive us all to be better and better paid because of certification complexity we handle. And then governments can actually encourage that why do you not aspire from low wage to a high wage economy in general? It can be done. So to me, 2047 as crossing the century mark for the nation's independence, I think it's a good place to vision. I strongly believe 2047 is a good thing to do because most of our planning is very short term. When we had the planning commission, we had a 5-year plans.
Okay.
In today's world, 5 years is not enough. Things are happening long term, especially in the military. It's like 15, 20-year cycles of new armaments that you create, the new training, whatever it is, and all the theories of peace usually advocate one has to take a longer time. So one has to take a longer vision and then making sure you are having steps to take to reach that goal. And I would say goal is not fixed. 2047 goal of $5 trillion economy, which will be done much sooner, I think. One can say, all right, now that we are likely to reach that goalpost sooner, what is the next goalpost? The country where I've enjoyed working in this area is Singapore again. Every 20-year plan they create, and they roll out the 20-year plan further down. Okay, here is the vision, the aspiration for 20 years, what we will look like. And then once we have done that thing sooner than 20 years, let's start next vision, whatever turns out to be, I think that process is very important. And I think it can be done. I mean, we have nothing but talent in India.
Yeah.
And the world admires Indian talent, whether it's in the academic world, corporate world, political world now, surprisingly, definitely in bureaucracy. We seem to have whatever we do in India, we seem to do, even though we are critical about what we do in India, our education system, etc., we all grew up on that system and we have done very well.
Somebody has posted a very interesting question, sir. Thank you very much. Somebody has posted a very interesting question. Please ask, sir, like you have got IAS, IPS, IRS, IES, that is Indian Railway Service, Indian Revenue Service, Indian Economic Service, Indian Forest Service, Indian Foreign Service. Why not to have India Tourism Service?
I think it's a good idea, personally, given that it is likely to be 10% of the economy.
Yeah.
That's a significant component. It's one of the strong pillars. And I think it's a very good idea. It sounds sort of a facetious right now. It sounds like, something we're just talking about. But I think it could be made into a strong aspirational goal, both by the private sector. And I must tell you that I think we are underestimating the impact we will make with the growth of the Indian airlines. I think it's just like railways 150 years ago made the transformation. I think it's the airlines nowadays that make a transformation. So the more we have access to airlines, more airports are being built to go into more hinterland in some fashion. I think just as we built a massive railway system, we need to build a massive airline system or air system, as US has done. I mean, I'm amazed. I think in US alone, continental US, we must have 9,000-10,000 flights a day. When we have a weekend or some season, and like 1,000 flights are canceled and 2,000 are delayed. I mean, I still can't believe these numbers in thousands. And to me, one aircraft a day was imaginary in my mind, watching that plane fly over and all that stuff. And today it's a very different world. But China is the same thing. China has a massive air system put in place.
Wonderful.
Now, why such airline is important as a part of it? It's a very strategic one, because once you have such a large number of air travel, you have the manufacturers of aircraft hub in your country.
Yes.
So, for example, Airbus is now having a whole manufacturing and assembly in America as an export. Export is becoming less and less attractive for a bunch of reasons. So now you can attract a Boeing of the world, the Airbus of the world, and the Brazilian aircraft, Canadian aircraft makers, 451, come and assemble in India. Once you have done assembly, it is a multiplier with all of the component makers who have to come assemble because it's a low value, high weight industry. So you have all of these suppliers have to come, very similar to the automotive industry. Now, automotive industry may take some time in India, but to me, the aircraft industry can hub in India from assembly, manufacturing, then repair and maintenance, which is a service component. I find fascinating in India that while we think about manufacturing driving services, in India, actually services may create a manufacturing sectors.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Airports, that's manufacturing.
Valuable.
Hospitals, hotels. One has to think differently.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for that valuable input. In fact, sir, the Honorable Union Civil Aviation Minister made a statement recently, and he said, wherever I take airport, the economy of that particular region gets developed. And yes, sir. And secondly, Air India has placed a huge order as far as the aircraft now coming career to India and different sectors opening up in that, sir.
Right, correct.
And and sir, finally, one more point I would like to take, if you kindly permit, that in skills, when you say somebody is writing over here, skill is one particular skill which you acquire. Do we feel that we have to move from skill to competencies, where number of skills or multi-skills be required by every individual?
The answer is yes and yes.
Okay, okay.
What in skill set, what happens is that you have the foundational skills which are common across all occupations. Like IT, understanding e-commerce, coding to some extent. Now ChatGPT, which will be reality very soon, whether we like it or not, we'll be debating or not, it's going to come.
Absolutely, sir.
Having money exchange through electronic wallets, as we do in India with payment systems which are standardized now with the government platforms and all that stuff, that's common to me. That's competency. But then tourism has its own language. Tourism has its own requirements by government, compliances issues. Tourism has its own unique safety features. When you have a large mob of 10 million people congregating together, how do you manage it? That's very different. So it's both. So one has to have both sets of skills, in other words. Foundational skills, where it's the same curriculum, whether it is tourism or whether it is some other industry, IT for that matter, or, I don't care, whatever you imagine. So it's both.
Okay.
I'm sorry to belabor Dr. Sharma, but it's similar to in MBA programs. Our first year MBA is just a core knowledge of economics, behavioral sciences, one course in finance, one in marketing. Then you decide the electives that you want to choose in your second year. I want to be a specialist in marketing. I want to be a specialist in finance, accounting, whatever it is. I think it's the same notion here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yesterday, I had a detailed meeting with Professor Anil Sastrabuddheji, and he is heading at present the chairman for the technology part in education in India. So he was remembering you, and that time when we had a discussion and I was talking with him on tourism, what you made a mention, it was such a sheer coincidence. The same point, because he's watching this program, same point he brought yesterday. And he told me, everything is fine in tourism, whatever you are developing, but I want to focus on tourist guides.
Yes.
He told, I want to focus on tourist guides. And when you made a mention today, when you were talking about infrastructure, digitize, certification, promote tourism domestically and all, you emphasized that we got to have the skilling certification for all jobs. And there you made a mention of tourist guides. And he also yesterday endorsed, and I remembered you to him, and he was telling me, from my side, the input is, let's focus on tourist guides.
And absolutely. And by the way, tourist guides, I don't know whether you know, but there are two tiers of tourist guides: those who are historians and those who are professors.
Yes.
And they take people, National Geographic, for example, which is one of the NGOs who does exploration. They take these very, very high-level intellectual people who have a complete history of the destination. Just, the chapel in Rome, for example. I mean, I have gone to one of those. I was a tourist, and the guide was actually a professor from someplace, and he had more understanding historically, more intellectual conversation I could have with him about that particular painting of, famous painter that we saw, for example. So to me, in fact, Discovery Channel was created by a University of Maryland professor who used to take the alumni on tours, but at a high level, not a casual. So you go and really understand very, very deep knowledge. And he decided that taking physically people out is fine, but it's not enough market. Let me start a Discovery Channel, and rest is history.
Would you be kind enough to mention his name and university, sir?
University of Maryland,
Okay.
and I think John Hendricks was his name.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
We will go through, sir. We'll find out. But it's a value addition. It's a value addition which you have given. Remarkable that how the professors at that stature, at that level, when you're taking students outdoor and you're taking, basically to nature and that point of time, and Discovery Channel. Oh, we'll get into the depth of that. That's a new dimension which you have given today to us. And thank you very much for being with us, sir, for 1 hour, 2 minutes today and sharing your vision, how India should prepare itself, how India should move for 2047 as far as travel and tourism and linked with the hospitality, aviation, and other sectors of the economy is concerned. And the most scintillating input which sir has given is we should also create 100 million jobs from this particular industry. With that as a focus, let me convey my deepest gratitude and thanks to Professor Jagdish, Sheth, sir, the patron of the International Chamber for Service Industry, for sparing his most valuable time, sharing his vision and giving us the vision for the future. How do we prepare ourselves? Let's all get together. Let's all work towards this particular mission and cause. And we should come back to him after some time, showing some kind of a progress report and a card. Thank you, sir.